Hi, this is James Cook of the University of Maine at Augusta, and this is the 9th video in a series that's showing you how to take a tiny little computer called a Raspberry Pi that you can buy for under $50. You can hook it up to a monitor, keyboard, and a mouse, and you can use a language called Python to create a social media monitoring machine. Now, if you look at videos 1 through 8 in the series, you'll see how to physically hook up a Raspberry Pi, how to install software, how to start using Python, how to import packages in Python, including one called Py that analyzes Twitter data, how to hook that up to your Twitter account, and how to start taking actual data from Twitter and saving it in that universal data format, a CSV file, comma delimited, in which individual pieces of information are separated by commas. So in our last video, we talked about how to take a tweet and extract information about relationships, mentions, URLs, which are web addresses, and hashtags. And we then generated a general program called CSV Extract Py to do that. But once you have this general program, one of the issues that becomes a little frustrating is that you have to go back into the program every time that you want to change a little bit of analysis. Maybe you want to take a look at different Twitter feeds, at different users. Can't you ask for that kind of customization outside the program, using the program itself? Sure you can, and we're going to show you how today. We're going to learn 2 new skills in Python. One is to use an input statement, which is going to add a little bit of interactivity to our program. And the second is the idea of concatenation, which is really just shoving pieces of text together. In this case, the text of a file name, so that when we ask for a unique piece of information, say the recent tweets of a Twitter user, we want to have that unique information end up in the files that are output as a result. So let's get on the computer. Let's take a look inside the Pi. Let's alter our program to include inputs and concatenations so that we can have a more generally useful tool. All right, so here we are in the Raspberry Pi environment. We're looking at a desktop environment, and to review very quickly where we've ended up, we can start a terminal to run Python in a text-based environment. If we take a look at the directory by typing ls, we'll see a number of Python programs that we've already created in this video series. So the most recent Python program that we created was called CSV Extract Py, and the idea was that we would extract all this information out of a user's tweets. So let's take a look at that using the very efficient and spare word processing program called Pico. Pico stands for small, but it works. CSV Extract Py. Yeah, that's the program. And we can see a number of features here. The first few lines of this program, this is all review, are to import 2 packages, Tweepy and CSV, that we've already installed onto this Raspberry Pi. The next thing we're doing is we're typing in some consumer keys, consumer secret, access token, and access token secrets. You can look this up on the internet, but also we've talked about it in our series. I'm not going to show you mine right now because they're secrets. They're secret passwords, essentially, to be able to use your Twitter account in order to do things. And if I shared them with you, then, well, you You wouldn't do this, I know, but other people might be able to do nefarious things. So you have to keep your secrets a secret. But once we've done that, then we're setting up essentially a handshake between us and Twitter through something called an API in the next 3 lines here. An API is an interface between this program and the platform called Twitter. And it allows them to talk to one another. And then as the comment notes, we're going to get some data. And we're going to use that by using a series of commands that start with API dot blank. And we're going to then obtain those tweets. And you can actually do it in one line. Then we're writing a series of CSV files that take a look at each of those tweets and grab information out of them. That's super. Okay. But as we'd had before in our previous example, we might have looked at a particular username on Twitter. Might be Hillary Clinton, might be real Donald Trump, might be someone else, depending on your interests. Might be a sports star, might be Beyonce Knowles. But in order to change who you're looking at, you have to go into the program each time and change it. That's a bit cumbersome, and there's an easier way to go about this. And that is to take this literal text here, in which we put in quotes the username, real Donald Trump, and instead we ask, every time that the program's run, we ask the person who's running the program to tell us what username they might want to use. And to do that, we're going to create a new variable. It's going to be called user_name. And what is that variable going to be equal to? It's going to be equal to the input that someone types in. That's what input is, typing in. And there's a command for getting that called raw_input. This is in Python 2 and Python 3. The command might be slightly different, but you can look up those differences that will emerge over time. So to run the command raw input, first you say raw input, which means this is what the command's going to be. Then you put in a parenthesis, and you type in some text that you want to appear on screen. So it's like a prompt that tells somebody what to type in. And so we're going to type in the prompt, hey, please enter username. What kind of username? Twitter, Twitter username of interest with the @ symbol here. Where? Well, we'll put a colon and a space. And then, of course, every time you put in a beginning parenthesis, you put in an end parenthesis. And that's it. So every time the program's run, it's going to collect that information, and it's going to store that value in the variable user_.name that is at the beginning of that line. So then, if we want the program to run with that username and use it, we're going to have the same command as before, but we're going to now, instead of just typing in quotes, the actual text of someone's username, we're going to type in without quotes, because without quotes, you're referring to a variable, just simply the variable username, which means we're going to run this API.user_timeline command to get the timeline tweets of someone. Who? Well, whoever is specified in user_name. So let's give that a shot. Now, once we do that, right, we might have one complication, which is that we don't want to simply run this once. Maybe we want to run it 5 times and to look at 5 different users. And when we look at those 5 different users, gosh, well, maybe we want to save that data separately for each user. In order to do that, we need to develop a second skill, and that is to save a different file name according to a different user that's used, right? So to be specific, let's take a look down here at this write to CSV file containing tweets command. It's creating in this very first line here that I'm going to highlight. It's creating a file called CSV of tweets.csv, which is going to be a comma delimited file that will contain the tweets. That's the name. The name of it is CSV of tweets.csv. But we'd like to insert a name in there that tells us it's not just a CSV of tweets. In general, it's a CSV of tweets of a particular user. Which user? Well, we already have, fortunately, the name of the user. It's in the variable user _.name that we wrote down up here. But we do want to be able to refer to it when we're creating a file name. Well, remember what I said about when you put things in quotes, and by the way, it nicely highlights that in green, it tells you this is literally the name of the file that I want. Well, imagine that we instead wanted to create a variable so that the name of the file might change. We might call that variable file name. But now that we've created that variable, we have to define it for the computer. So we're going to go up one line, and we're going to write file name equals. So the variable's on the left, and what the variable equals is assigned on the right. And we're going to say, hey, let's start with this idea, CSV of tweets. That's always a good place to start because it is going to still be a CSV file. It is going to contain tweets. But we want to stick in the name of the user after that. And to do that, we're going to use a command called concatenation. To concatenate is to simply shove two pieces of text together right next to each other. And in Python, to concatenate, you can use the plus sign. So we're going to shove together the actual text CSV of tweets. And then we're going to shove it together with what? The variable user _.name. And then comes the last part, because every file name, at least in most computer systems, needs some kind of indication of what kind of file type it is, right? So we want to then add another plus. So we're putting a third piece of text here, and that is going to also contain the .csv. And then we put an end quote, because wherever you put a beginning quote, you put an end quote. So we have a file name that's a variable, and we're going to say whatever that is, whatever the username is, it's going to be shoved between CSV of tweets and .csv. Username is shoved in there, and that's going to be the file name. And then we're going to have the command to open the file name and write to it. Well, it's going to use whatever that name is, file name. Now, this program from last time, it doesn't just write one CSV file, it writes a number of them. Here's CSV file 1, and we've got the same issue right there, right? So let's create a file name 1, and that is going to equal CSV of URLs, okay, right there, which is this piece down here, right? I'm just shoving that up there, and then we're going to add in a plus, and then we're going to add in user _.name here too, and then a plus, and then .csv. Okay, and then we're going to change this so that instead of just all the time having it be the CSV of URLs, that is the comma delimited file containing the web addresses from a tweet, we're going to have, we're going to head down here, and we're going to replace that with what? The variable name, file name 1. And we'll do the same in our last two here. File name 3 equals, looking at the line below, it's going to start with CSV of hashtags, and then it's going to be plus user underscore name plus dot CSV. And then once we've created that variable, I put a 3 in there, but it's going to be a 2. We'll then go and replace this with our variable name. And then we have finally file name 3, which is our third file name variable. And that's going to be equal to what? Go back down one line, look there, it's called CSV of mentions plus user underscore dot name plus, this is concatenation, the dot CSV. And so now, if I replace this with, file name 3, we should be able to obtain customized analysis, saving to 4 customized files with 4 customized names. It didn't take that long. It took me probably a little bit longer to explain it than to do it. But I'm going to head in now, and I'm going to put in my consumer key, consumer secret, access token, and access token secret into a file. And we're going to run it and see what we get. Okay, so here we are, and we're ready to run a program. I've created a copy of that program that we just typed in that contains my access tokens and my consumer key and consumer secret. All those 4 lines of passwords that I'm not going to let you see, but that you also have. And we're just going to run that program now. And we're going to run it by typing in Python to run the program Python, and then to tell it what file to look at for commands, and that is CSV Extract to run.py. Let's see if it works. Okay, now to run the analysis, it's saying, we have to enter a username with an @ here. This is our prompt. That's great. This is the input statement. The raw input statement is actually running. So in order to make that work, we're going to need to type in a Twitter handle. Which one should we use? How about our president's? @real Donald Trump. When we run that, we have an output with a bunch of print statements that are telling us what we've got. In general, it looks like we've got some things to work with. Let's look at the directory command. And now we see 4 new files here. CSV of hashtags @realdonaldtrump.csv with the mentions, with the tweets, and the URLs. That's great. We could run it again. So let's do that. Python CSV Extract to run.py. And how about his spokesperson? Sean Spicer. We've got to remember to put the @ there. Sean Spicer. We could do that too. And when we run that analysis, it's going to contain different information. And when we look at our directory, we now have another set of files. So we could just keep on running this. And you see how fast it is now to run? Now that all we have to do is run that same program over and over again and just type in a different Twitter handle, and we got a whole new analysis containing all kinds of information. So the hashtags for real Donald Trump we can find by picoing that, and let's take a look in there. CSV of hashtags @real Donald Trump.csv, and this will give us for his most recent tweets the hashtags he's been using. apparently not using any hashtags recently. We could go out and we could confirm that. What about Sean Spicer? Pico CSV of hashtags at Sean Spicer .csv. Okay, so apparently Sean Spicer has been using Marine One, Super Bowl 2017, and Super Bowl LI Super Bowl references. Great, and we can take a look at the actual tweets. CSV of tweets at real Donald Trump.csv to verify that there are actually no hashtags in his recent tweets. Is that true? I don't see any. And we could scroll through and we're not seeing any hashtags, which is really interesting. Now we can, because certainly this is something that the Donald Trump Twitter account has used in the past before. What do we see? We do see references to other users, and we see references to other web pages. So let's take a look at those. Pico CSV of mentions at real Donald Trump.csv. And there are the mentions right there. New York Times, White House, New York Times again, and CNN. Who has Sean Spicer been referring to? CSV of mentions at Sean Spicer.csv. And we can look there as well. Wow, a lot of references. Many of them to the president, but also to the New York Times, to the Washingtonian, US Weekly, and a number of media outlets. So, in fact, it looks like the list goes on and on. So, in short, by adding just a few lines to our program, we've been able to add a whole new layer of capability. We can run analyses, we can save them. Every time we run them, as long as we're using a different handle, we don't have to worry about overwriting our previous results. And of course, we can always take those results and move them off of our Raspberry Pi to another computer to do some more complicated analysis if we need. But you're able, with the input statement and the concatenation statement, to now run a whole lot of analysis very quickly to be able to look at a whole bunch of different people on Twitter and what they're up to.